There's been a lot of noise about Rachel Reeves facing a £40 billion deficit that must be addressed in October, or else the UK economy will face trouble. Dr. Evans, can you clarify if this black hole is real or exaggerated?
Absolutely. The notion of a £40 billion black hole is more political rhetoric than economic certainty. Fiscal forecasts are projections based on current policies, and as we've seen, such numbers can swing significantly with policy changes or economic shifts. It's important to scrutinize how these figures are calculated before accepting them as gospel.
That's a crucial point. Many people see these numbers as set in stone, but, as you've noted, government finances are dynamic. How do media narratives around deficits shape public perception and policymaking?
Media often frame deficits as emergencies, which pressures politicians to make hasty, sometimes harmful, decisions. In reality, a government's budget is more flexible than a household's. For example, the IMF found that fiscal black holes are often closed through a mix of growth, inflation, and policy tweaks, not just spending cuts.
Let's transition to the mechanics specifically, the Bank of England's role. The bank owns about £600 billion in government bonds, matched by new reserves it created during the 2008 and 2020 crises. Can you break down what these reserves actually are?
Certainly. When the Bank of England bought government bonds through quantitative easing, it credited commercial banks' reserve accounts with new money. These weren't deposits from the banks themselves. Think of it as the bank adding digital cash to bank ledgers, not unlike how a game developer can add virtual coins to a player's account.
That's a helpful analogy, but what's the controversy about paying interest on these reserves? Why does the government pay over £25 billion a year to commercial banks?
The issue is that the bank pays interest currently 4.25% on the full £600 billion, even though banks didn't earn or invest to acquire these funds. This annual payment is essentially a transfer from the public to private banks, raising questions about whether it's necessary or justifiable.
This brings us to a potential solution, reducing interest payments on excess reserves. Is it technically feasible for the Bank of England to pay interest on only a portion, say £200 billion, rather than the full £600 billion?
Yes, and historical precedent backs this up. In 2008, the bank only paid interest on about £20 billion and still managed to control overnight interest rates effectively. Paying interest on just £200 billion today would more than suffice for monetary policy purposes.
That's fascinating. Are there international examples supporting this approach?
Definitely. The European Central Bank and the Bank of Japan both restrict interest payments to specific reserve balances. This policy saves their governments billions annually, proving that the UK could adopt a similar model without any technical obstacles.
So, why hasn't the UK moved in this direction yet?
It comes down to policy choices and political will. While commercial banks benefit from the status quo, shifting to limited interest payments would free up public funds for pressing social needs without destabilizing the financial system.
Let's imagine these £15 billion savings were realized. What could the government achieve if it redirected this money to public services instead of bank profits?
The possibilities are significant. For example, £15 billion could fully fund the abolition of the two-child benefit cap, expand the winter fuel allowance, or provide vital resources for schools, the NHS, and social housing. According to a 2023 Resolution Foundation report, even modest investments here yield powerful social returns.
That's compelling, but what would critics say about potential risks, like undermining bank stability or spooking investors?
Most evidence suggests minimal risk if managed prudently. Banks would still hold safe, liquid reserves, just with lower returns. International experience shows markets react more to overall economic stability than to changes in unearned interest payments. Ultimately, it's a question of priorities, public good or private gain.
In summary, this debate isn't just technical, it's about choices and values. Thanks for helping us unpack the real story behind the so-called black hole.
My pleasure. It's vital we demystify these issues so that the public and policymakers can make informed, balanced decisions about the future of our economy.